So in the previous video, I introduced the task list and showed you some of the basic functions, how the task content type works, and some of the views that are set up for you. Now, I'm just going to show you a bit more of the advanced functions that you have on tasks list. I've created a task list here with some common tasks you would want to complete when building a house. You can see actually the first task here is build the house. Now, what we'll aim to do here is establish relationships between all these tasks because they don't all stand alone. They actually are all related to each other, and we want to show that here on the screen. Now, in order to do that, there's a couple of different things we can do to establish relationships. Uh, the first thing we can do is using the indent and outdent tools. Also, actually, I've not covered this insert tool, which is quite useful. Normally, when you're adding a list item, you create a new item and it appears at the bottom. The tasks list allows you to put tasks in between items. So I might decide I want to put something between wiring and building a roof. I want to add a new task in there. I don't have to add it to the bottom. I can add it in between these two by using the insert. Now I'll show you the indent and outdent function. Um, Basically, what I want to do is an established relationship between all these tasks, and I want to show that all these tasks belong to this master task of building a house. So I'll click on indent for lay foundation, and you'll see what happens here is lay foundation kind of becomes a subtask of build house. Now, it's not an actual relationship. This is really more a visual representation, but it's very useful, and you can see I can collapse and expand. I can see that build house has a subtask, and that is lay foundation. And this will come more clear. I'll set the indentations for the rest of these tasks, and you'll see what I mean. So laying the foundation is part of building a house. Digging the ground is part of laying a foundation. So I'll indent this twice, and you see that digging the ground now becomes a subtask of laying foundation. Pouring the cement is also part of laying the foundation. Building the structure is another task at the same level as laying the foundation. It's a major task, but it's not as major as building the house. It's not as minor as digging ground and pouring cement. Building the external walls is part of building the structure. So is building the internal walls, as well as building the roof. Now I have these two extra tasks here, wiring and plumbing. I could, if I wanted to, insert a task here and call it utilities, for example. That's useful. Now I get a message here. It says the field requires a value. I've submitted a value, so that goes away. It's a bit odd. So I could create one here called utilities actually, and combine wiring and plumbing underneath of those to help group them. Otherwise, I could have them indented and be at the same level as lay foundation and build structure, but I'll set it up this way. Um, so I've established this relationship. Click up here to stop editing the list. And you can see now that I actually can group all of these as one task, build house, and I can expand this and see all of the subtasks that are involved. So I have these kind of medium level tasks of laying the foundation, building the structure, and setting up the utilities. And I can see which, I can expand each one of them to see what they contain. Now what I really want to look to do as well is to set predecessors. This is important. So I want to make sure that, I don't necessarily need to do wiring and plumbing in any particular order, but these tasks here, it's very important that the foundation is laid first, and then the structure is built, and then the utilities are done. They can't be done in a different order. So what I will do is I'll select utilities. This tick box here, if you're used to SharePoint 2010, this tick box here doesn't select the item. It actually marks the task as complete, so be careful about that. And what you'll actually also notice here is if I mark this particular task complete, it does not mark these subtasks as complete because, as I said, it's not actually establishing a relationship between them. It's more visual. So if you want to mark these tasks as complete, you actually have to come in and mark them as complete here. I'll actually untick them. So I wanted to set a predecessor of utilities, so I'll tick that box here and I'll edit the item. I'll click Show More, and the predecessor of the utilities task was to build the structure. The structure has to be built, so I'll add that as a predecessor. Save that. And building the structure also requires a predecessor of laying the foundation. So I will edit this item, show more, and I'll lay the foundation. So now I've established a relationship between these two. If I had dates assigned to all of these, I could look into my Gantt chart here, and what I would see is I would see arrows basically displaying the relationship between these. And I can show you that very quickly here. So what I'll do is I'll set a date for building the structure. So I want this done on the 30th, for example. I want utilities done on the 1st of June, and I want the foundation laid in the past, let's say the 19th of May. This is just to show you the relationship between the two. Now when the Gantt chart updates, you'll see here that the Gantt chart is actually drawn arrows between the two, and that is essentially illustrating that there is a predecessor relationship here. And if you look obviously at the build structure task itself, you'll see that it has a predecessor. Now, it's also really important to note that SharePoint won't block you. You know, if, for example, if I wanted to update the utilities task and say that I'm beginning it and the build structure task has not been completed yet, SharePoint is not going to block me uh, in terms of moving this task along. If you wanted to do that, you'd have to set up some additional functionality. So it's not enforcing the relationship, it's really just displaying the relationship between the two and making sure that whoever's working on this is aware that they can't just work on this task. They have to make sure that this and this are both are also complete. So very useful tool.